Our research effort begins in light of a modern exodus. 5 million plus women who have been forced to exit the formal American labor economy as of March 21st, 2021, 1 million more than their male counterparts. Women, particularly African American women, Latina women, and female workers with marginalized academic degrees, have been disproportionately impacted by job loss during the COVID-19 pandemic. Throughout our research, we utilized system mapping to critically analyze the complex network of socioeconomic factors driving this recession. By creating a timeline of events that accumulated in today's mid-pandemic precipice, we were able to outline the overall challenge landscape. We investigated observed patterns and analyzed the underlying structures and mental models that hold legacy power structures in place while still impacting women in the workforce today.
In order to understand the current economic fallout, we analyzed historical labor market trends dating back to 1948, when the US Labor Department started tracking gender-inclusive employment metrics. At that time in the 1940s, approximately 1/3 of American women held jobs. That number nearly doubled by the late 1990s. However, since 1990, the number of women in the formal economy plateaued, where it's remained stalled for the last 30 years. As a result of COVID, the ratio of women participating in the formal economy has now fallen below 57% for the first time since 1988. We developed a simple taxonomy of women in the workforce based on low wage, high wage, and essential, non-essential. Disaggregating the data helped highlight where we needed to dig deeper. In the first category, low wage, non-essential, women were hit the hardest. Here we have a lot of service jobs such as restaurants, travel, and healthcare. There's also a higher proportion of Black, Hispanic, and education disadvantaged women in this category. Category 2 and 3 share a common story of direct exposure to the public. These were the women who put their bodies on the front line to make sure we got the food, care, and medicine we need. Women in category 2 may not have had access to paid sick leave, health insurance, affordable childcare, which inevitably impacted their employment status. Workers in category 4 benefited from the ability to work remotely. They suffered less acute job loss, but recent research found that 1 year into the pandemic, this group is now at high risk. 1 in 4 women are considering leaving or downshifting their careers. This analysis highlighted 2 key points. 1, if you are a caregiver across any of these 4 categories, school closures and a lack of access to childcare compounded the overall problem. And 2, the most important thing to note is that the bucket you fall into is not entirely within your control. This is a concept known as birth inequity, which we refer to as the ovarian lottery in our paper. If a woman is on the winning end of the ovarian lottery, she was likely born into a virtuous cycle, a family with resources, financial stability, education opportunity, and an environment that fostered individual agency. To hone in on the virtuous cycle dynamics, when a woman can delay marriage and has access to family planning resources, it enables her to have a longer planning horizon for employment. It emboldens her to invest more deeply in her education and human capital, and it creates a broader sense of identity before and after marriage and children. Ultimately, at the heart of this cycle is agency, empowerment, and choice. However, this virtuous cycle is not available to all women. There are many forces that impact a woman's ability to work. Access to family planning, investments in human capital and education, and the ability to maintain a career before and after marriage is determined by many outside forces. These forces are often called the political, environmental, and social determinants of health. They include our political system, access and quality of education, relative economic stability, social and community contexts, and healthcare access and quality. Throughout our research, we found that surrounding the virtuous cycle is a set of factors that can either present themselves as barriers or enablers to a woman's career.
Building from this, we examined a key metric reflecting the status of our economic equality: gender wage gap. The data reflected is sobering. The gender pay gap in America has only closed by 8 cents in the last 25 years. Next. Economists describe the gender wage gap in 2 buckets, the explained and residual. In the explained category, academic choices such as underrepresentation of women in higher paying STEM fields disproportionately impact women's pay in the larger workforce. Furthermore, the motherhood penalty also come into play. When women begin families, they frequently make changes to their labor supply that translate into large persistent losses in earnings over the course of their lifetime. The residual category reflects the fact that even if women make it to the top of their fields, there is still a residual gender pay gap. Next.
These learnings led us to develop a conceptual impact-based systems map for women in the workforce, defining 3 unique domains where women are disproportionately impacted by top-down and bottom-up forces: the political domain, industry domain, and social domain. Within the industry domain alone, women in the workforce are subjected to a spectrum of top-down challenges, including but not limited to asymmetric representation in industry, marginalized representation in the C-suite, legacy workforce policies such as limited maternity leave, and skewed workforce norms such as diminished urgency for firms to achieve espoused values of inclusion and diversity. To further refine key externalities, we placed women at the center of another economic analysis and evaluated 4 power dynamics driving or hindering equality in the workforce: the social status quo, prevailing government policy, family and community norms, and workplace standards. From this lens, an overarching learning emerged, which was, despite challenges, women have nonetheless succeeded in rising through the industry and academic ranks for the last 50 years. However, herein lies part of the problem. Parity workforce education does not equate to equitable representation in the C-suite. Parallel educational qualifications have not always manifested as equal pay. Voting rights do not correlate to symmetry in our electorate, and espoused values of gender equality do not always translate to holistic national policy.
So far, we've discussed the events, pattern, structures, and mental models holding this system in place, looking at the iceberg model. We also look beyond the obvious to ensure we intricately understood the challenge landscape. Next.
Existing solutions for some of these challenges include paid parental leave, affordable universal childcare, accessible reproductive resources, affordable after-school programming, and federally supported living wages and healthcare. However, we acknowledge addressing one element of the system stack is insufficient. In order to enact widespread social and economic change, we must approach solutions in a 3-pronged manner: by instituting equitable workforce policies, by reforming patriarchal social norms, and by enacting progressive government policy. Our summary framework of impact gaps and leverage points is based on Donella Meadows' places to intervene in a system, sorted from lowest buffers to highest paradigm shifts in terms of potential impact. Some levers of change we highlight include but are not limited to progressive policy and equal rights ratification, and the implementation of Social Security-styled safety nets for working parents.
Throughout this project, we engaged a number of remarkably inspiring women, thought leaders, and subject matter experts who helped us realize not only how far we have to go, but furthermore, how far we have come. In summary, COVID has presented the world with unprecedented challenges, but it has also created the space for possibility, to create a vision of resilience, to imagine a more equitable system for the future, and to build a workforce less prejudiced than the one we began in. It will take all of us to get there. This research effort was conducted virtually over countless Zoom meetings while balancing the demands of work life, home life, the care of a terminally ill parent, and the remote schooling of children. Thank you.